What if I told you that a simple function from number theory determines how resistant your DNA is to random mutations, and possibly even determines the survival of life itself? But that's not all. This function turns out to be continuous everywhere, but differentiable nowhere. It's a fractal, one of the so-called pathological functions in analysis, similar to the famous Weierstrass function. But it actually looks like a pudding, or more precisely, a European dessert called blancmange. In fact, mathematicians describe this fractal as a blancmange-like curve. But more on this later. Before starting though, I just want to say that, guys, we're not biologists, okay? And in this video, we're focusing on the mathematics behind it. So if you see any imprecision or something that is not very well defined, please be merciful with us, okay? And you can always check the research paper that we attached in the description of this video. There you'll be able to see the precise biological concepts. Okay, let's start at the beginning. Your genotype, loosely speaking, is your DNA sequence. Your phenotype, though, is much more exciting. It is the manifestation of your genotype, the observable traits that result from your genes, like your eye color, your blood type, or the size of your brain. There is a mapping where the domain is your genotype and the codomain is your phenotype. If the environment stays fixed around you, so constant nutrition, constant temperature, stress level, chemical exposures, and so on, this mapping behaves like a function, but it's not one-to-one, it's not injective. Many different genotypes can lead to the same phenotype. And that's actually a good thing, because it creates stability in biological evolution. It allows nature to explore variations without breaking what already works. There are two main types of genetic mutations. The first is germline mutations, which happen in sperm or egg cells and can be passed on to children. And the second is somatic mutations, which happen in the body cells usually during your lifetime. Somatic mutations are usually the dangerous ones. They can lead to diseases like cancer, but thankfully our biology is built on a mathematical system that provides a sort of stability against mutations. This tendency for a trait to stay stable despite mutations is called phenotype robustness. Mathematically, it can be expressed as the average probability, denoted as ρp, that a single character mutation of a genotype mapping to a phenotype P does not change the phenotype P. Phenotype robustness has a mathematical structure. Each genotype, so each string of letters over the set ACGT, is a vertex. Two genotypes are connected if they differ by a single mutation. In other words, if they differ in exactly one character. This structure is called a Hamming graph, a highly dimensional graph where edges represent a single mutation. Let's see a concrete example to illustrate the point. Take the Hamming graph H34. Here, each vertex is a string of 3 letters over the alphabet ACGT. The vertex set is written as ACGT to the power of 3. This represents the Cartesian product of ACGT, so the alphabet set, with itself 3 times, which means all possible combinations with repetition to form strings of length 3. Two vertices are connected by an edge if they differ in exactly one position. That's what's called the Hamming distance of 1. Using simple combinatorics, there are 4 times 4 times 4, so 4 to the power of 3 or 64 strings, and thus this graph has 64 vertices, each one representing a possible genotype. If you guys are learning something and enjoying this video, please do not forget to like it and to subscribe to the channel. That's the best way to support us. Let's get back to the video now. Imagine that we don't build the entire graph at once. Instead, we build it incrementally, vertex by vertex, following a rule called lexicographic order. That just means we order the genotype the same way words are ordered in a dictionary, comparing letters from left to right. This way of adding vertices is like a bricklayer stacking bricks row by row. And that's why we call it a bricklayer subgraph of the full Hamming graph. At each step, we add a new genotype, so a new vertex, and then we connect it to other vertices if they have a single character mutation. In this growing structure, every added vertex reflects a new genetic possibility, and every edge is a mutation path. Bricklayer's graphs are important in mathematics because they allow us to study and to see how properties of Hamming graphs emerge step by step. And they surprisingly connect to number theory through a function called the sum of digits function, which is very simple, by the way. Okay, well, as you can tell, this is just starting to scratch the surface of all the mathematics involved in genes, like graph theory, analysis, combinatorics, probability, number theory, and so on. We could go forever here. I mean, there's a lot of math inside of an organism.
But wouldn't it be fun to know a little bit more about your own genes? To see all of this math in action? Well, a perfect solution that we got was to take a DNA test. We really love the entire process and the concept that's behind it. A DNA test is something I've personally been wanting to take for quite a while now, so I was super curious to see the results.
A couple months back, we were approached by the company Adentro, who gave us the opportunity to know just that. Thankfully, there were no needles involved, just a container to spit into. And when we got the results back, well, just see the reaction we had for yourself.
Wow, what a surprise! You're like 2,000,000,000% Italian?
60% Italian, 25% Iberian.
Spanish.
Okay.
Or Portuguese.
Spanish, okay. I have some indigenous.
American.
Indigenous America. I have some Aborigines in my family. Cool. And French and German.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, but I didn't know that. Like, it's really surprising, man. Really. Okay, now it's your turn.
That's it? I'm just...
Whoa.
I am very concentrated, huh? It's like
it's only
zero
two.
variation. I'm just from Turkey, the Caucasus, this region there, and Ukraine. Done. Anyway, I just want to say that this was super fun to do, and I would recommend anyone and everyone to try it. I think that's just something everyone should do once in their life. Then we saw that there's so much more you can learn than just ancestry. What's your perfect diet? Which vitamins should you be taking? How likely are you to get joint or muscle injuries? What diseases are you prone to or are more protected against? And that's just a small part of it. I mean, there is just a treasure trove of knowledge inside of you. It even tells you if your genetics are predisposed to math abilities. Now, how cool is that? Once you've done your DNA test, Adentro always upgrades the features on their websites based on new research, so that you can always stay up to date. You can find out more and more about your genes as science moves forward, or as they upload new features. If you've taken the test with another company, chances are they didn't give you some, if not most of these stats. But don't worry, Adentro lets you upload your DNA results even if you've taken them with another company. They also don't sell or share your data, and you can download it at any time and even delete it from their systems if you want to. So these results are completely yours.
Honestly, there is literally no better way to invest in yourself or invest in someone else by getting them the test kit as a gift. If you'd like to find out more, click the link in the description and get 10% off by using the coupon code DIBEOS. And don't forget to use it so that you can get the discount. Now, let's get back to the video. The sum of digits function is actually very simple. For example, the digit sum of the decimal number 1995 would be 1 plus 9 plus 9 plus 5, so 24. All you need in order to define this function is a number I, or a sequence of digits, and a base b, so that you can calculate s in base b of I. For example, s in base 2 of 5 is 1 plus 0 plus 1, which is 2. Because the base is 2, so we need to write the number 5 in binary, which is 101. S in base 10 of 123 is 1 plus 2 plus 3, which is 6, because the base is 10 anyway. The thing is, we don't actually have strings of digits in our DNA case study. Our genotypes are written with letters, so like ACG, CTT, and so on. And therefore, before we can use this nice math of the Hamming graphs and the sum of digits, we need a way to translate letters into numbers. The simplest trick is just assign each letter of the genetic alphabet to a digit. For DNA, the alphabet has 4 letters, so we map them to the 4 digits 0, 1, 2, 3. Then the genotype ACG becomes the digit string 0, 1, 2, and CTT becomes 1, 3, 3, and so on. Now we can treat every genotype as a base 4 number, and this allows us to use tools from combinatorics and number theory to study them. There's a theorem that says, let G and K be a bricklayer's graph, which is a subgraph of the Hamming graph HLK, of strings with length L over the alphabet of K letters, such that N is its number of vertices. Then the number of edges is given by this formula, where this is the sum of digits of the base K representation of the number I, and this one is the cumulative sum of all those digit sums. Okay, there's a lot of information packed here. Let's have Sophia tell you a concrete example so that you can understand the math behind it and how this directly influences your DNA.
Since we need to follow the lexicographic order, we start with AAA or 000. Next in line would be AAC or 001. And we notice that we can already establish our first connection, or edge, since they differ by only one character. In fancy terminology, their Hamming distance is 1. The next vertex is AAG or 002, which has 2 edges so far. If we continue this process up to ACA or 010, we notice that it has an edge only with AAA or 000, but not with the others that come before it. This is because they differ by more than one character. But it can still have more edges connecting it with the later genotypes in the sequence. Let's go on and build this bricklayer's graph up to n equals 10 vertices. Just reminding you that this is a truncated version of the full Hamming graph H34. We also notice that this bricklayer subgraph has a total of 21 edges. Just for you guys to know, we counted all of them one at a time in order, which is a pretty uncomfortable thing to do. But wait a second, why are we counting each individual edge if we already have a formula to calculate them for any general bricklayer's graph? Let's apply the formula instead, n equals 10 and k equals 4. We got 21 edges, just as before. That's how this formula works. Now what happens when we also vary the number of letters k in our alphabet and the length of each string? We get many different possible graphs. Okay, you may wonder, as a mathematical curiosity, altering the number of letters in the genetic alphabet to more than 4 may be interesting, but we know for a fact that we only have these 4 letters anyway. So I guess this has no practical application to real life, right? Wrong. Scientists in synthetic biology have already engineered expanded alphabets. So they've added new artificial DNA bases beyond A, C, G, and T. These expanded alphabets can produce proteins with new amino acids. And this lets us explore completely new forms of biochemistry. This means new drugs, new materials, and even new life forms that are designed in the lab. That's really cool. But the real question is, how can we measure the phenotype robustness that we talked about earlier in the video? So in other words, how can we quantify the idea of stability despite mutations? How can we measure how stable it is? Well, first, we need to define robustness mathematically. It's the probability that a mutation does not change the phenotype, so it's neutral. We calculated using this formula. The numerator counts all neutral mutational possibilities, since each edge counts twice, once from each endpoint. The denominator counts all possible single mutations. So this fraction is exactly the probability that a random single mutation has a neutral effect on your phenotype. Let's see a quick illustration. Now plug it into the formula, and therefore for this small bricklayer subgraph, on average about 47% of single-letter mutations keep you inside the same phenotype. Not super high, nor super low. About half of the mutations here are completely neutral. Now, let's talk about the Blancmange function and how it relates to phenotype robustness. Plot a triangle wave function. Then, for the interval 0, 0.5, create another sort of triangle or corner. and do the same for the interval 0.5, 1 as well. Then we do it again for these 4 intervals. We can actually continue this process infinitely and get a fractal that looks like a Blancmange dessert. The iterative formula for producing this fractal is this, where 5x is the distance of x to the nearest integer. If you want to see more details on how to use this formula, check out the PDF link in the description of this video. This is really cool, but you may be asking yourself right now, what does this have to do with anything we've been seeing so far? And you'll be surprised, because this is the highlight of the research. If you'd like to be the first to receive updates about new courses and books, sign up with your email address on our website. Link in the description. What happens if we calculate the phenotype robustness, rho of G and K, so the average probability that a single mutation stays neutral for a phenotype, across the bricklayer subgraph G and K, with alphabet size K and N vertices, and then plot it against the normalized frequency of genotype, given by the logarithm in base K of N over K to the power of L. This plot shows how robustness evolves as we add vertices one by one to the bricklayer's graph, and the surprising result is that the curve follows a fractal, the Blancmange-like function, squeezed between the upper and lower bounds. There are, of course, way more details to this study, and if you're curious, you can check it out because we've linked it in the description. The authors carefully worked out the upper and lower bounds, the exact formulas, and the biological interpretations of these graphs.
But here our focus is on the mathematical result. Contrary to all intuition, the plot of robustness doesn't form a smooth curve. Instead, it gives us a fractal structure, so a curve that is continuous everywhere but differentiable nowhere. More specifically, a Blancmange-like curve emerges out of nowhere, which shows that mutational stability in genotype-phenotype maps follows the geometry of a fractal squeezed between very precise upper and lower bounds. Crazy how the most abstract mathematics keeps on appearing in the weirdest places. If you guys enjoyed this video, I'm pretty sure you're gonna love this one. Just click right here. See you guys there.